ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਜੀ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ। ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਫੇਰ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਸੇਵਾ 'ਚ ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਹਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਨਵੀਂ ਇਨਸਪੀਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ। ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹੋ ਕਿ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਹੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਲਈ ਕੁਝ ਖਾਸ ਸ਼ਖਸੀਅਤਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਚੁਣਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਤੱਕ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਉਸੇ ਕੜੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅੱਜ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਨਿਰੋਲੀ ਸਿਸੋਦੀਆ ਜੀ ਮੌਜੂਦ ਹਨ। ਨਿਰੋਲੀ ਸਿਸੋਦੀਆ ਜੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਪਿਆਰੀ ਸ਼ਖਸੀਅਤ ਹਨ। ਇਹ ਆਪਣਾ ਪੋਡਕਾਸਟ ਵੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਤੇ ਇਹ ਅੱਜ ਮੈਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਇੰਟਰੋਡਿਊਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਮਾਣ ਮਹਿਸੂਸ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇਹ ਸਾਡੀ ਬੇਟੀ ਵੀ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਇਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਮਾਣ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੀਆਂ ਬੱਚੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਤਰੱਕੀ ਕਰ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਸਪੋਰਟਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ। ਆਪਣੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਹੋਣ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਫੁੱਟਬਾਲ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਚੁਣਿਆ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕਿ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਵਧੀਆ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ। ਔਰ ਇਹਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਕੰਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਕੰਮ ਕੱਢ ਕੇ ਸਪੋਰਟਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਲੈਣਾ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਦੂਸਰੀਆਂ ਔਰਤਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਨਕਰੇਜ ਕਰਨਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸ਼ਾਮਲ ਹੋਣ ਲਈ। ਮੈਂ ਚਾਹੂੰਗੀ ਕਿ ਅੱਜ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਮਰ ਕੌਰ ਸੰਘੇੜਾ ਜੀ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਾਈਕੋਲੋਜਿਸਟ ਹਨ, ਸਾਈਕੋਥੈਰੇਪਿਸਟ ਹਨ, ਤੇ ਉਹ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਹੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਪਿਆਰੀ ਇੰਟਰੋਡਕਸ਼ਨ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਕਰਾਉਂਦੇ ਹਨ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਡੀਆਂ ਸ਼ਖਸੀਅਤਾਂ ਨੂੰ। ਸੋ ਮੈਂ ਚਾਹੂੰਗੀ ਕਿ ਅੱਜ ਅਮਰ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਨਿਰੋਲੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇੰਟਰੋਡਿਊਸ ਕਰਾਏ। ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਅਮਰ।
Thank you. Sat Sri Akal ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ. Today we welcome Nirali Sisodia, who's an award-winning clinical pharmacist, who's also an advanced clinical practitioner and founder of the Kickback podcast, which focuses on females, women's football, and the South Asian representation that we have in the UK. So welcome, Nirali. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me onto the podcast today. It's great to be able to share some of the learnings.
No, thank you. Thank you, really thank you a lot for coming today. I was looking through your podcast channel and your Instagram, channel. It sounds really amazing. Like you've been doing so many things to try to be inclusive and, closing the gap between diversity really and female in football. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Nirali.
So as you said, I am a clinical pharmacist, and I'm really proud about that, because I feel like as if pharmacists are kind of the people who are behind the scenes and people don't really see what we do, but there's a lot of work that we do. And I do a lot of charity work as well. Actually, I think it's really important to be able to give back to the community. So I'm also the head of pharmacy for a charity called Better Lives Foundation, and we provide free healthcare and education to the population in Sierra Leone, and we're the only free hospital in Sierra Leone as well. I am a big women's football fan, which kind of came about in the last few years. It's always been there because I used to go to football matches with my dad, but that was only men's football, and afterwards I found men's football a bit boring, so I kind of fell out of it. But I played football kind of during school and everything like that, and after school I was part of the football team. I was a defender and played goalie for a bit as well. And then afterwards, you grow up, you have to think seriously about what career you want to go into, and I was encouraged to go into pharmacy, and then I full circle moment found my way back in women's football, and it's been quite a journey. And I think what I like to do is that I like to put values into everything that I do. If I see any kind of injustice, I think, is there anything that I can do about it? If there's something that I can do about it, I will always try my best to do so, to try to be part of the change. And I think that's what everybody wants to be. They do want to see a change in the world and in what we're seeing right now, because there are a lot of injustices happening. So I suppose I'm a bit of a jack of all trades and a master of none, is how I would describe myself.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you. So I want to ask you a little bit about your podcast. What made you think about this idea, and what made you start it?
Well, interestingly enough, when I got into women's football, I went to a football match, and I come from Leicester, and Leicester has a very diverse community. But when I went to my first football match, I noticed that there wasn't very many people who looked like me in the football stands. And that sparked the question as to why. I always say that the hallmark of a pharmacist, or rather the hallmark of any human, is the ability to ask the question why. So in that crowd, I was thinking, why are there so few people who look like me? Why is it that there aren't any South Asians on the pitch? what's going on. And so that led me to do a bit of research. I spoke to a few of the South Asian footballers that I was aware of, and then I was like, you know what, I feel like as if we need to do something about this. So I then decided to just network like anything. I networked so much, tried to go to as many events as possible, reached out to so many people on Instagram to try to build up a network, get a picture of the environment, try to get a picture of the barriers, because I know the barriers that I faced when I was younger, to playing sports and everything like that. For coming from a South Asian background, if you think about it, our ancestors, they had to move from places that were dangerous, left everything behind, and they came over to other countries to try to rebuild. It was about rebuilding. So the thinking that were in our parents' minds was actually what we need to do is we need to build up some resilience, we need to build a foundation, we need to find good jobs, sustainable jobs. And I think that's the thinking that we went with. So the podcast kind of started with that. So first it was just me and my sister talking about our experiences growing up in a South, being South Asian and playing sports. And then just asking people who are from other backgrounds, but also who are allies to the cause as well. So, I've interviewed people like Leila Banaras, I've interviewed people like Kira Rai and Willie Chandarana after their match. I've interviewed people who are allies like Jordan Glover. So she's a cousin of our current England captain, Leah Williamson, and getting their thinking on it as well. And I think that's really important to show that people from all backgrounds are actually coming together. The aspect of unity is so important when we're trying to create change. And the podcast also focuses on women's health as well. So I had Dr. Carly Richards, for example. She's an expert on ACL injuries. So I had her on the podcast because, as we know, there are so many athletes who are now suffering with ACL injuries who are female. And so just to give people a better understanding of what it's about, why is it such a potentially a career-ending injury, or rather it used to be, but now we have so many methods to counter that. So it's about bringing about the awareness to people. It's bringing about an awareness to people about the barriers that we need to overcome, and how do we as a community help to overcome those barriers. What changes do we expect to see, and how do we get people who look like us into the boardroom, into those higher ranges of leadership? Because 90% of people who are in senior management in sport are white. So how can we expect to be represented? How can we expect to break down those barriers if we're not even seeing representation there? And that's what it's a very brutally honest kind of podcast, is what I would say.
Interesting. Very nice. So Nirali, I can understand your journey is not easy journey. So how do you manage to balance the physical demands of football with your busy career, like in healthcare as well?
That's the $1 million question, I think. Everybody always asks me this, because obviously in healthcare, you're continuously learning. Guidelines are always changing as well. To be honest with you, I haven't really perfected the way in which to balance this. I don't sleep very much, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. But again, it's about being able to plan. And so I use my phone all the time with the calendar to just make sure that I'm scheduling things appropriately, because I also work 2 days a week at the university teaching pharmacy as well. So I basically am in 3 cities in a week, every single week. It's Kettering, London, Leicester, Kettering, Leicester, London, all the time. And I'm very lucky because I have quite a supportive family who will enable me to do that, give me the encouragement, but they also are the ones who tells me this is getting a bit much. Are you sure you can manage this? And sometimes you need that reality check. And so I think that's also really important. And I'm very honest with the followers on my page. They know that I can't always post continuously, which is why the page actually has quite a slow growth as well, is what I would say, because I can't consistently make posts for Instagram, for TikTok and things like that. At the moment, I feel like as if I'm doing the bare minimum. I'm not doing enough just yet. You know, there is still so much more to achieve. But all you can do is your best at any point in time. And as long as you're doing your best, there's nothing more that anybody can demand from you. And that's all that you can do. I use my annual leave to attend events. I don't use my annual leave to go on holiday or to have a rest or anything like that. I get maybe half a day, maybe 1 day a week where I've got some kind of rest in. Sometimes I get no rest at all. It just depends what's on that weekend. So it can be really tough, but sometimes you use the cause to motivate you to have the energy.
That is quite inspirational. There's going on, isn't there, Nirali? So you're a very, very fully, full-on busy lady. There's a lot going on there, but you obviously clearly have ambitions to grow the channel, do more podcasts, because you have a passion in this field too, which is great. You said quite an alarming figure there. So, wow, 90%. So we are very seriously underrepresented.
Very seriously underrepresented. And I think when you look at examples of good representation, you'd look at clubs like Brentford FC, who are really trying to, they've diversified their boards, not just when it comes to gender, but when it comes to actual ethnic backgrounds as well. And this is the thing, because when majority of leadership is white, and you mention the word diversity, they feel like as if you're only talking about gender. They think that diversity means, we need more females in the boardroom. But when you break it down further, it's not just gender equality. We also have to look at, are we representing our community? And what's happening is that we're not representing our community. What it is doing is representing the white community, right? At least now what we have is that we have some black football players. We have a few more black people in the boardroom. But the world is not black and white. And this is the thing, people feel like as if it's such an achievement. And this is where the element of tokenism comes in. We've got a black person in there. That's it. We've met our quota for diversity. No, that is not how we achieve diversity. We have to understand what diversity is. We have to understand the barriers that people have. We have to understand, how do we make sport accessible for everybody? And this is why people like Ruxana Hussain, so she's in charge of Leicestershire in the community, active women. That's what she runs. She encourages women in Leicester who are from an ethnic diverse background, irrespective of what background you're in. She encourages them all to attend different types of sports and then actually get them more active. And you know what she says, that if they can socialize first and then we get them into physical activity, that's how we can achieve our people from ethnic diverse backgrounds actually becoming more active as well. Because when you look at it on the health side of things, people from a South Asian background are more likely to be overweight, more likely to have diabetes, more likely to have cardiac conditions. So why isn't it that we're not focusing on the communities that actually require them to be more active as well? And that's exactly what Leicestershire in the community does, actually. It's focusing on that, getting people socially active, physically active, so we can reduce the incidence of things like diabetes, obesity and things like that, which is amazing. That's a byproduct of what she's trying to achieve, because she's trying to achieve that unity.
Get recognized. So according to we hear all this all the time, all those things you are just saying. But so what needs to change to make good sports more accessible to South Asian women then?
I think that there are a lot people think like as if it's one problem, which is access. So when you hear anybody talking about it, they're like, oh yeah, we just need more access. I asked the man, I forgot his name now. He basically founded Arsenal Women. And I asked him the question, it's great you've done this for women. What about those from an ethnic diverse background? And all he said was the opportunities are there. When you ask any white female footballer about diversity, they said, oh yeah, it's all about accessibility. That's the part of their ignorance, right? That's a part of their ignorance. It's not just about it being accessible. We also have to think about Clothing. I mean, we recently saw in the news today how one of the Muslim players who is not comfortable wearing shorts was denied being able to play football because she wanted to play in tracksuit bottoms. You know, that has reached the national news, right? And it's because a referee who has no idea about cultural norms or cultural barriers said, no, you can't play because you're not going to wear shorts. That's not fair. That's not fair.
Discrimination in 2024. You would have expected a lot more, wouldn't you?
We're in 2024 and this type of discrimination is still happening. What we need to have, it's a two-pronged approach. We need to be able to first educate our communities as well. Say sports for women is now a place where you can actually earn a good wage. That's what we need. So what needs to change? The attitude towards sports within our community. What also needs to change is how much women are earning in sports as well. That also needs to change, because if you can see that it's sustainable, that you can have a career in sports and be successful, then you're going to have more people going for it as well. Don't forget, there is still that fear that people have, and we've seen it in the riots, right? There are still people out there who don't want us to be here in this country. There are still people out there. That's their ignorance, right? So again, that attitude also needs to change as well. What else needs to be changed? There needs to be true representation when we're talking about diversity. People actually need to be educated about what does diversity actually mean. It doesn't mean black, it doesn't mean white, it doesn't mean just women. It means everybody. And that's the part that people are forgetting about. So we actually need to have the right people in the right jobs. And what's happening right now is we don't have right people in the right jobs. We have people who are like, oh yeah, that's my mate, let's get him employed. You know, so you'll have the men always supporting the men, and then the women are forgotten about. But even within our community, right, if you see a South Asian who is succeeding, a lot of people from the outside are, oh, there's already a South Asian there, so there's no space for me, there's no room for me. That attitude also needs to change as well. And what we need to be doing as a community is lifting each other up. If you see somebody from a South Asian community succeeding in an area where you don't expect them to succeed, praise it and shout about it and really give them that boost, because then you're building a community where you are supporting each other. And again, that is the attitude that needs to be changed. So it's not a one thing that's going to change it. There are multiple things that need to be changed in order for us to have access. And I think now that we have kind of, you know, our generation having kids and everything like that, they are starting to see, actually, I want my kids to have something that I didn't have. And so they are putting them in more sports and those sorts of things. But whilst they're putting them in more sports, we need them to not drop off. And that means that girls who hit their periods, for example, they need to be comfortable being able to play sports whilst they're on their periods. A lot of women and girls will stop playing sports because they have started their periods. We need to be able to educate them and say, well, you've started your period. This is how you firstly stay hygienic on your period, how you can manage while you're doing sports on your period as well. And so that education again needs to be there. And I think the other thing is there isn't a lot of research in how different health conditions impact our communities. So the way that somebody who is white experiences their period might be different to the way somebody who's brown experiences their period. Their management might be slightly different. And again, that research is not there. It's not being applied to the applied to the environment, and actually the education is not happening for our girls. So yeah, they are going to drop off. So there's lots of things that need to happen. It just depends on the perspective, and we need to be able to talk to those girls who are serious about this and say, what are the barriers are you facing? That's not happening.
Wow, that is so good. And it's so true, because in particular, there's a lot of barriers, like you just said. The shorts is shocking, isn't it? That you're actually expecting somebody from a Muslim faith to uncover their legs. That's just unheard of. Now, also, that's not just a Muslim person. That's also sometimes a Sikh, Christian, a black person, anyone. Sometimes people do not want to show their legs. But my question now kind of divulges and goes to diversity across the board now. What about the, non-binary people? Where do they fit in this? If you're now discriminating against somebody not being able to wear tracksuit bottoms, that is just, that's another whole topic for another day. But, what's your opinion on that?
I completely agree with you, and it's been such a hot topic. Actually, we saw this in the Olympics. We've seen this in one of the football clubs as well, where there's a transgender. So they're transgender, they're going from male to female, and they want to be part of the football team. Now the other team said that they didn't want to play because that player was transgender, because their hormones are different, right? So this is the argument that is happening now, is that how do we be all inclusive? Like, we had a non-binary player playing at the Women's World Cup. Actually, she was a Canadian player, her name is Quinn. She was playing, her gender, she's non-binary, right? But her assigned gender at birth is female. So she was still playing in the Women's World Cup. But when you're actually transgender, and it depends on whether you're on hormone replacement, because all of that changes. And again, like I said, we saw this in the Olympics, where there's the argument that if you have like male features, people were slating. It was the oh my God, I've forgotten her name now. She was the boxer. She was a boxer, and people were saying, oh no, she doesn't look female, she can't possibly be female. All of these types of comments are not helpful, they're untrue, they're unkind. And actually, and they're like, oh, she's got more testosterone than other girls. I'm like, she was born a girl. Everybody has different hormone levels anyway, right? Everybody has different hormones anyway. You can't put a cap on that.
No.
And that's not for us to decide either. That's for the IOC to decide as well, and they have to decide what is right, what is true, right? So this debate is still ongoing in the realm of sport. It is still ongoing, and there's there is an argument that if you're fully transitioned and your hormone levels are that which is in the normal range of a female, for example, then you could play. Some people think that, some people don't think that. Some people say that if you were originally assigned a male at birth, then you still have the muscles and everything like that, therefore you shouldn't be able to, because you have an unfair advantage. But other people are saying, for example, Michael Phelps, he's got particular genes which makes him better. I think it was genes or some kind of physical attribute which makes him more suited to swimming. So does it mean that he shouldn't be allowed to swim because he's got an unfair advantage? Should we strip him of all of his titles? So these are the types of arguments that are happening at the moment, and at the moment nobody's been able to rest on a right or wrong answer.
It's really so in terms of all of this, putting it out there, it's opening up more and more topics, isn't it, Nirali? Age, even in terms of communities, it's quite shocking that we are talking about UK, we're talking about the United Kingdom, America, Canada, we're talking a little bit about westernized countries. Now, football, you mentioned about Sierra Leone there, and football in India is very close to my heart. And I see more and more females, very slowly, but playing football. What do you feel the difference is? Now, I'm talking about India, third world country. You've got connections in Sierra Leone. Do we see the same type of diversity issues across the board? Or do we see that there might be more of a, push for females in the UK across the board that are from a South Asian background going forward? What do you think?
So it's a really interesting question you asked, because there's another element in here that we haven't spoken about yet, and that is money, right? In the UK, there is a lot of money for women's sports, and people are investing more and more in women's sports. We've just seen Michelle Kang now just give a £2 million investment to IDA Sports for their women's football boots, for example. $2 million. Yeah, Laura Youngson's done some amazing work, and she's one of the people that I've spoken to before, about donating boots to Sierra Leone, for example, because in Sierra Leone, so we do sponsor a girls football team in Sierra Leone, and they didn't have anything. They were playing barefoot. They don't have a pitch. They don't even have a proper football. So I managed to sort out some kits for them, managed to sort out some trainers for them, and now they can actually play with something on their feet. Right, so they've got so we've managed to get that sorted out. We managed to donate some football boots as well. The issue here is money, the investment, right? We need investment in these countries. If you think about it, so Miriam Walker Khan, she went to the Women's World Cup, and she went around and she asked people, oh, about South Asian representation at the Women's World Cup. At the Women's World Cup, there was only one South Asian representation, and that was Sam Kerr, and she plays for Australia. Right, there's only one. Now Australia has a lot of money for football. Because Australia went quite far in the World Cup, they got so much more investment. In India, why haven't we ever seen India at a Women's World Cup? There hasn't been the investment in their facilities, there hasn't been the investment in the training, and this is something that, so her name is Anjali in India. She does a lot of work with the Indian Football Federation to try to get more women and girls into football. And in fact, India just recently played in the SAF competition, in which Bangladesh, I think it was Bangladesh that won that competition, and I think India came third, but don't quote me on that. But we had that. It is there, but it's not getting the airtime that it needs. It's not getting the investment that it needs. So when we talk about diversity, actually, the diversity at the moment is there in other countries, but the investment is not, which means that we're not getting the airtime. We're not watching this on the mainstream. So there's a lot of work that needs to happen there as well. It depends what the priority is, but that goes across men's and women's football in India. In men's football, even in India, men's football doesn't get as much recognition as cricket does, for example. It doesn't get the same airtime, and so that's another thing that we have to look at, is that investment too.
So what do you think the landscape will be now for women evolving, and we could say internationally, looking at India too? How do you feel that particularly will affect South Asians? Do you think that with the work that you're doing, there's a lot of people like you're trying to raise the awareness of diversity and the impact of sports, like, social engagement, mental health? There's many sports clubs for elderly as well across the UK that are for South Asians and ethnic minorities. There's more and more influences of doing sports from small children, like you've got those little clubs like Little Kickers and things. So you have a lot of new initiatives that are engaging people into football from a very, very short and young age. Do you think that's something that's going to change? Do you believe that all of the roles that people are playing now and influencing cultural awarenesses, do you think it will make a difference?
I think it will make a change. It will make a difference, and we're starting to see it, but it's going to take at least 10 years before we actually see some kind of representation at the top levels as well. We already have people like Sarit. So Sarit, she plays for the under-16 Lionesses. She's South Asian. She's representing us at under-16 Lionesses. So proud of her. She scored 2 goals against Switzerland as well just recently, and they were absolute bangers. I absolutely could not believe the goals that she scored. Were absolutely phenomenal. The future is really bright there. But we also have different types of football as well. So when you look at para football as well, and when you look at blind football, and when you look at beach football as well. So there are 2 girls in there. They're both from Moroccan descent. So there's Karima and there's Sarah as well. They both play for England in beach soccer. which is amazing. And they're always posting all the time how proud they are to be able to represent who they are as individuals on the pitch. They own their ethnicity, and that's what we want people to do. We want people to own their ethnicity. You see all the time. So like Miriam Walker Khan, she released a documentary recently, and in there, one of the footballers who's of German, who's half German and half South Asian, he was like, I owned my German side, but I couldn't own my South Asian side. And this was at a time where there was, still the whole kind of like World War II, all the bad stuff that Germany did and everything like that, but he was still able to be more proud of his German side than his South Asian side. Why is that? Why is that? He's able to embrace his German side, not his South Asian side. And now he's like, no, now I have to own it. And that's after he's retired from football though.
Bit late, but never too late, is it?
Well, yeah, exactly. It's never too late. But it's nice to see the representation, for example, that Sam Kerr, her family's from Kolkata, and she'll say that actually, yeah, I'm glad that I'm able to represent South Asian on the pitch, because it means that those young girls can also say, hey, Sam Kerr made it, I can do it too. And that's what we want to have. We want people to feel like as if, yeah, I can make it too. You look at Kira Rai. Kira Rai has been playing for Derby since she was about 6 years old, I think it is. And she's an amazing role model. She recently won an award at the Asian Football Awards, for being such an inspiration to female footballers. And when I had a chat with her, she's so down to earth, she's so chill, she's so amazing. But not only that, we're seeing more and more now that content creators are now of different ethnic diverse backgrounds as well, and that's what we want to see. But actually what I'm finding is actually harder for us to get into those roles. There is always some kind of barrier there because there's not very many of us. I know a handful of people, but this is again why allyship is important. And I think that allyship is building the same way that women's football has got Ian Wright to advocate for them. The same thing with this. We need to actually have people who will who will advocate and will have that allyship with us.
So wow, thank you so much. It's been really interesting to you.
Yes.
So, and we will share your channel and everything so that all our viewers can obviously see your highlights and all the changes that you're making and promote the diversity work that you're doing.
Amazing. Right? Thank you so much.
So thank you. It's amazing.
Thank you, Nirali. Thank you so much. It's really nice to know all those issues we are having in the community, and I hope that जो भी हमारे जो सुनने वाले हैं, मैं हिंदी में भी बोलूँगी क्योंकि साउथ एशियन फैमिलीज जो आज हमारा प्रोग्राम देख रही हैं या पंजाबी च बोलांगी क्योंकि पंजाबी वाले भी साडा प्रोग्राम देखते हैं। सो मैं तो यही कहूँगी कि जो भी हमारा प्रोग्राम देखेंगे, मैं यही कहना चाहूँगी कि अपनी बच्चियों को बहुत ज़्यादा इनकरेज करें और अपनी बच्चियों को जो है वो अगर करना चाहती हैं, फुटबॉल में आना चाहती हैं, तो उनको ज़रूर उनको सपोर्ट करें और जो भी वो करना चाहती हैं उसके लिए यही हम हमेशा कहते हैं अपने पॉडकास्ट में। जब भी हम इंटरव्यू करते हैं तो दूसरों को, बच्चों को भी करते हैं। तो मैं ये कहना चाहूँगी कि जिन्ने भी आज साडा प्रोग्राम देखणगे ਉਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਲਈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੁਸ਼ਕਲਾਂ ਆਉਂਦੀਆਂ, ਅੱਜ ਨਿਰਾਲੀ ਨੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕਾਫੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਾਫੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਇਸ਼ੂਜ਼ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਫੇਸ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਇਸ਼ੂਜ਼ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਕੰਮ ਕਰੋ, ਆਪਣੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰੋ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਬੱਚੇ ਗਿਵ ਅਪ ਕਰ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਆ। ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਗਿਵ ਅਪ ਕਰ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਸ਼ੂਜ਼ ਨਿਰਾਲੀ ਨੇ ਦੱਸੇ ਆ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਸਾਹਮਣਾ ਕਰਨਾ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਡਰ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਹਟ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ। ਹਾਲਾਂਕਿ ਉਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਟੈਲੈਂਟਡ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਸਾਡੇ ਬੱਚੇ, ਉਹ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਨਿਰਾਲੀ ਨੇ ਅਚੀਵ ਕੀਤਾ, ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਹੋਰ ਬੱਚੇ ਅਚੀਵ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ। ਸੋ ਬਸ ਇਹੀ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਬੱਚਾ ਸਪੋਰਟਸ 'ਚ ਹੈਗਾ, ਜੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਮੁਸ਼ਕਲ ਆ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਜੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਕੋਈ ਹਾਵੀ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਰੰਗ, ਨਸਲ ਜਾਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਕਾਰਨ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ, ਤਾਂ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਕਿਸੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੋ ਔਰ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਨਕਰੇਜ ਕਰੋ। आई थिंक निराली दैट्स द मैसेज फॉर टुडे साडी कम्युनिटी ਨੂੰ और हमारी कम्युनिटी को भी यही मैसेज जाना चाहिए, सबको ये मैसेज जाना चाहिए कि अपने बच्चों से उनको बिठा के ये जरूर पूछें कि उनको क्या मुश्किलें आ रही हैं और उनके ऊपर काम करें और उनको हेल्प करें। क्योंकि एवरीथिंग इज अवेलेबल एंड यू कैन टॉक अबाउट इट। हम आज बात कर रहे हैं, इसीलिए बात कर रहे हैं कि ये जो है हमें इश्यूज हैं कम्युनिटी में लेके आने चाहिए, और हमें कम्युनिटी की जो है सपोर्ट भी चाहिए इसमें, है ना। सो थैंक यू सो मच, एंड थैंक यू सो मच अमर। अमर हमेशा से हमारे साथ जो है बहुत ये भी आपकी तरह हेल्थ में भी है, और वैसे भी हमारे पॉडकास्ट में भी बहुत हेल्प कर रहे हैं। सो आई रियली अप्रिशिएट यू बोथ ऑफ यू हैव कम टू यू नो लाइक आवर टुडेज आवर चैनल। तो बहुत कुछ सीखा हमने आपसे निराली। थैंक यू सो मच, एंड थैंक यू अमर, थैंक यू सो मच।